I want to introduce to you, we're recording now, Omni Kiecker, who is a lawyer, has her own firm, and she's going to be teaching us about wills and estates, and there will be Q&A time, correct?
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
All right, we'll give it to you.
Well, welcome everyone, and thank you to Pastor for that sermon today. Leading into this, I do really appreciate when people are willing to broach the topic of estate planning. It can be icky, it can be scary, and it can be just generally something that we don't ever want to talk about. I came up here from Belle Plaine with my family today to be with you guys and be here, and as he also said, with life, things happen. Apparently there is a football game happening somewhere today that a lot of people might be attending, so hopefully you're watching this. Hi to those watching it on feedback. But really, when it comes to estate planning, we don't know what we don't know. So what I'm about to present is just some generalized information about estate planning. It might be some terminology you already know, but hopefully I am able to talk to you about a few things that you don't yet know. And as yes, there will be Q&A at the end. If you do have questions, we'll be available. So, Okay, perfect, click. So terms and concepts, I'm out. That's okay, I'll keep talking, I have a loud voice. Terms and concepts, these are the things that when we see this, we run away scared. We see terms and concepts and all of a sudden you're like, probate, well guess what, I'm gonna start with that. We're gonna get the icky one out of the way and start with that first. But then as we go on, we're gonna talk about things like wills, trusts, guardians. He mentioned caring for children, the circle, passing things on to your children and grandchildren in the sermon. We're gonna talk about that. And then we're gonna get into some things that, guess what, might be helpful while you're alive too. Because estate planning is not just for when you're dead and when it is finished. So if you could, please go on to the next slide. Stop right there. Number one question I get asked as an attorney right here, number one question. People, can I ask you a question? Somebody on the street, can I ask you a question? Somebody taps me on the shoulder in church, can I ask you a question? Sure. What is it? Will my estate have to go through probate? Number one question, and I'm going to answer it. Guess what? Maybe. The lawyer answer, the typical lawyer answer is going to be maybe most of the time if I don't know anything about you. And that is because not having a will, yeah, your estate might go through probate. You could draft a will. Guess what? Your estate might still go through probate. And then people think, oh, well, if I have a trust, it won't go through probate, right? Wrong. Your estate might still go through probate. And that is because any estate planning can be subject to probate or litigation. Anybody can sue anyone for anything. Does it mean they'll win? No. But are there people out there that may still try? Yes. So basically when you go through, any estate plan subject to litigation, but the better the estate plan that you have. If it's crafted with people you know, love, trust, financial planners, attorneys, whatever it may be, accountants, pastors, the better it's crafted, the more likely it is to stick and hold and have it follow through on your wishes. All right, probate. What is it? Does anybody actually know what probate is other than a headache? I see my head shaking no, thanks to my son in the front row for doing that for me because we don't know. So now click. Here's what probate is. Probate in Minnesota is any asset valued at $75,000 or more titled in your name or that of you and your spouse when you pass away. Basically, probate is simply a court process by which the judge helps to determine who should get your assets or items when you die. Probate is time-consuming. Probate can be a headache. But I will also say that there are good reasons for probate. Yes, there are. Here's why. So, I live next to snowbirds. They take off for Arizona in November and they don't come back till March. I could put their house on the sale if I wanted to without probate. I could just put the house on the sale, sell it, I get the money, they come back, they have no house. Because of probate. It's the title to the home. It's the transfer of the title to my neighbor's home when they pass that would allow the estate to pass the way it should versus me as a neighbor coming in and stealing it out from under. So snowbirds, you're protected, you're okay. Because of probate, your neighbor cannot sell your house when you travel. Basically, but really, I want you guys, when you talk about probate, look at that number. We heard in the sermon today we're wealthy. We heard what the income was. The median income, 115, I believe, for this county. So listening to that, an asset valued entire probate estate, not just one asset, entire probate estate. Think of what could throw your estate into probate. Had you died last month when you were out on the lake and your boat sunk, would your estate be subject to probate today? Yes, no, maybe. Think about it. Are you giving your loved ones that headache you said 3 minutes ago you didn't want? We're talking about our loved ones and we're talking about caring for them. So, let's go on, please. How do we avoid probate? That's what we want to know, right? How do we avoid it? Well, drafting a will. Next slide. A will is simply a document describing how a person wants their property distributed after they have died. Many can also include guardians and trusts for minor children. Now think about that. A will also name a personal representative of your estate, and that's the person who's in charge or the executor. So basically, we know what a will is, but a lot of people think, I have a will, everything's okay, right? Everything's okay, like everything, healthcare, financial, everything, no. A will is after you die. A will is only good when you're dead, when you're dead, when you're dead. I cannot stress that enough. When you're dead. A will is good when you're dead. People think a will can't be changed. That's wrong. A will can be updated with the codicil. There are people out there that, like my grandfather, he did a will in 1960 something and he gave his 57 Chevy to my uncle. I was sitting down, I was reading Grandpa's will, and I'm like, oh, Grandpa, do we have a collector car? Do we have something stored somewhere? And he's like, no, I got rid of that car a long time ago. It's like, well, Grandpa, per your will, I would be searching for that car today. You should update it. You should get a codicil. So that's something to think about. Some people think that when you write a will, you need to tell your attorney everything you have and everywhere it's hidden. And basically, gifts of stuff today. A list of stuff can be referenced in your will. That if that list is found, it goes to those people. So right now, I can leave my BMW to my son. But then he crashes his first car, and my BMW is going to my other son. It can be updated. The list can be updated and changed whenever you want. I will stress that gifts of cash or coin, stamps, money gifts should be in your will. All right. Also, a will does not provide medical asset protection. That is something that is a deep, 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 deep topic, and I encourage you to talk to others about it because I'm going to say I could go on for an hour about that alone. Next slide. Okay, so Omni, you just told me a will is a good item, but it's only good when you're dead. What about now? What if I still want to have control of stuff now and plan for later? Well, maybe I can do a trust, right? Next slide. What kind of trust? Did you know there are multiple kinds of trusts out there and one trust is not the same as every other kind of trust? Something I always want people to know, revocable trusts are one of the most commonly types of trust. If you hear my neighbor has a trust, their best friend has a trust, their third cousin has a trust, it may tend to be in the revocable trust, which means I'm in control. I can change it. I can change my mind whenever I want. Trusts also allow great multiple parcels of property. Trusts are fantastic. Changed, revoked by the trustee. Oh, back, please, sorry. So, the one thing that a revocable trust doesn't do is protect your assets from medical assistance. Minnesota has a statutory 5-year, 60-month look-back period. When you apply for assistance, they will sit down with you and they will say, tell us everything you own now and everything you've owned in the last 5 years. And if you have a second piece of property in your name, they will say that second piece of property is eligible for you to sell and therefore pay for your health care. What people are doing is they are utilizing irrevocable trust, saying, I'm going to take this second piece of property, I'm going to put it in the name of my irrevocable trust. I cannot change it. I do not have control. I'm going to let it sit there for 5 years, and after that, it is out of my name. They are wonderful estate planning tools when giving stuff to the next generation. The next type of trust I like to tell people about is a trust under a will or a springing trust. For anybody that knows people with children under 18, myself included, had I drowned on that boat accident last month and I didn't have an estate plan, he turns 18, he gets his share of the inheritance at 18. If you inherited, say, $1 million at 18, would you have made the same life choices you made today? Or would you maybe taken a year off to backpack through the Appalachian Mountains? I don't know. When you're parents of minor children, we think about caring for our kids. They're little now, we care for them now. But a trust under a will allows you to care for them later too. It allows you to say, you know what, they can use all the money they need for health, education, maintenance, and support. Guess what? I'm dead. They might even get, 5% of their inheritance when they turn 18, but not all of it. We're going to have somebody known as a trustee take care of those assets for the kids. They're going to manage that money, and maybe he gets 20% when he graduates college or turns 23. It's an option, but it's still protecting him. It's protecting him from that first divorce. It's protecting him from the best friend who goes into real estate and has a great deal, or that best friend who's a financial planner. It's protecting him. Remainder at 30. As a parent, I'm dead. He's 12, but I protected him till he's 30. Something I encourage all parents to think about. The next type of trust out there that you may hear about is a special needs trust or supplemental needs trust. Now, this is for disabled individuals underneath the age of 65. This is to help take care of those loved ones in your life that may not be able to financially manage their money, that may need medical assistance from the county, that may forever need care, that guess what, I'm going to be dead before my 15-year-old son who has autism is able to reach the age. So we have a trust for him for special needs. If you have more questions, that's a conversation. I actually wrote a book on it. But family cabin trust. Family cabins are great in Minnesota. We have a lot of them. But guess what? Here's the plan. Here is the dream. Mom and dad, they have a family cabin. It's up north. It's great. They love it. They stay there whenever they want. They invite the kids up to visit. They give it in a trust to the next generation. But mom and dad can also put rules on that family cabin trust to prevent one sibling from maybe utilizing it more than the others. They can say, alternate families get it on the 4th of July in a family cabin trust. Again, mom and dad can help protect the peace of their children by putting rules on their kids. They're adult children. And you know what? Here's the deal. I always hear this too. My kids are perfect. They've always gotten along. They always will get along. It will always be wonderful. Great, but you know what? How about their spouses? Those evil, nasty spouses that want to utilize and monopolize. Let's protect the kids against that too, and maybe think of a family cabin trust. And then, pet trust. When I started talking about pet trusts, and when I sit down at a consultation, just for fun, just for laughs, just for giggles, I say, okay, does anybody have an African parrot or a Galapagos turtle or any animal that's going to outlive all of us in this room? Yes, I know you might put your hand down. But basically, the thing is, in my time doing estate planning, one gentleman left the room. He came up, African parrot on his shoulder. I kid you not, I got to meet an African parrot. It was kind of amazing, and we did a trust for it. I got to meet with people, 3 Galapagos turtles in their basement in the winter, outside in the yard in the summer. We did a pet trust for those Galapagos turtles, but it doesn't have to be for that unique pet. Show dogs. Any type of animal. You know what? Maybe it's just your beloved bunny, Tink. Maybe you want to make sure if something happens to you, Tink is taken care of. You can do that with a pet trust. But just know that in Minnesota, minors can't inherit till 18. But once they turn 18, beware, they can get a lot, and we may want to make control of that. Yep. Oh, stop. Perfect. Okay. Think. Stop for a second and think. Personal representative. I'll give you a hint. It's also known as the executor. It's an arcane term that is oftenly used. It is not going away, but the correct legal term is personal representative. Think about the person in your life that meets these characteristics. Go. Reliable, dependable, trustworthy, competent, and may want to get paid. Had you passed away in that lake accident, who is the person in your life that meets these characteristics? Because a lot of times personal representative people are like, oh, that's easy. I'll name my sister as a personal representative. She's only filed for bankruptcy 3 times. It'll be fine because she's my sister. But no, the personal representative of your estate when you pass away is the person that's got work to do. If you're married, it's going to be the spouse first. But the personal representative is the person where, had you passed away in a car accident, they're going to sue the estate of the other person. They're going to talk to the insurance company. They're in charge of following through with your funeral and burial plans that you've already established because you listen to these seminars and you're doing it. They are the person that's in charge of selling your house. They're the person in charge of talking to credit card companies. And you know what? Beyond your spouse, guess what? If you're married, you and your spouse, who's most often to be in the car together? You and your spouse. Kablamo. Who do you name after that? Your sister, his sister, best friend, financial planner, pastor, who would take on that role of helping you divide the assets. And in case I haven't stressed how big of a job this is, next slide, please. And click. Here we go. According to Minnesota statutes, this is everything a personal representative has to do. Nothing, no big deal, just this. Would my sister who filed for bankruptcy 3 times be able to do all this? Maybe. Selling assets, selling the house, dealing with investments, entering into contracts, entering into leases. Oh, if my lease is up for renewal, but my estate has to go through probate, guess what? She has to renew my lease for another year, and I'm dead. So we go through stocks, bonds, phone calls, assets, and guess what? Click. This isn't it. There's also this. I do this not to scare you, but so that you know when you name somebody as the personal representative of your estate, no matter who you are, you're giving them a job to do. You're giving them a job that is essentially taking everything in your life, all our stuff, all our investments, all our assets, taking our life and putting it into a pile of money and then dividing it where we want it to go according to our plan. It can be time consuming. It can be sad, but it's a necessity, and I think it's better if you name the person than if both spouses pass away and we've got 2 families bickering over who should do it. We have grief, we have mistrust, we have chaos, we have an uncomfortable death. Rather than celebration of life, it can lead to anger, and we don't want that. So if we could, let's go to the next one, please. Again, personal representative. Here's the good news. They can get paid if they want. So that when you're talking to somebody about being the personal representative of your estate, when you're talking to your college best friend who's an accountant, about being the personal representative. When you're talking to the person that met all those characteristics on that first slide that maybe wasn't your mother, father, brother, sister, let them know, like, hey, by the way, I love you, I trust you, and if you do all this for me and help me out, you might be able to get paid too. So They might keep, if they choose. All right, next one, please. Guardian. I was taking notes during the sermon. I wrote down something about circle of love and care and trust for children. That is the guardian. If you have minor children. Next slide. Who would you want to raise them if you were deceased? Things to think about. Ages of the children. Ability to relate to the children. Ability to provide adequate care, physical location, and faith. When thinking about who would raise your kids if you couldn't, again, I encourage you to look at characteristics, especially if husband wants his brother and wife wants her sister. How do you break that tie? You look at the best interests of the children. You look at who could raise them. I mean, really, I love my parents. They're wonderful people, but my dad's half crippled, and they're old, and there is no way they could keep up with this football player in the front row right here. They couldn't keep up with them. He may lose stuff that he could normally be entitled to if I named them. Ability to relate to the children. Again, I'll just name my parents. Can your parents relate with a potentially extremely hormonal, grieving 17-year-old girl? Think about it. Mine couldn't, no way. They need to be able to relate to the kids, provide adequate care, health, education, maintenance, support, physical location. I have a brother-in-law in Arizona. He's great, he's amazing, he's wonderful with kids, but if something happened to us, I would not want my kids moved from their main Minnesota source of family. So that is something to think about. If your kids are still itty-bitty, teeny, tiny young, maybe Arizona would be the best place. But at this point in my children's lives, no. And of course, faith. You know, we're here today, we came to church today, we're part of a faith, we're part of a family. Who will continue to raise our kids in that faith, in the support after parents have passed away? So guardian, caring for kids, physical, right? Next slide. Conservator. What in the world is a conservator? Guardian gets the kids, what's a conservator? Conservator is all about the money. Next slide. Conservator is a person appointed to manage the estate of a person, and really things to think about. Conservator gets the kids' money. So now wait a minute, okay. We've got personal representative. They're in charge of taking all of our stuff and winding it into money. Okay, then we've got who's gonna care for the kids. Now conservator, who's gonna manage the kids' money. Can they all be the same person? Yes, but they don't have to be. Now the reason I say this is another divide and conquer situation. You want a conservator to be somebody, balance a checkbook, financially stable, sound financial decisions. Hey, that's my mom. They can't keep up with my kids, but they can manage the kids' money. So in some instances, what families like ours will do, and it may be a point of conversation, is, kids, you already know this, you're going to live with your Aunt Jenny and Uncle Todd who already have 3 kids. Fantastic people raising 3 kids, one's in high school, great, but guess what? Sorry, Todd, if you're watching this, but you already have 3 kids, and I'm a little bit worried that my kids' financial money would be combined with your kids if you got the money too. If your daughter came up to you and said, Daddy, I need a brand new Jeep to take Omni's kids to high school. They'll be really cool the first day if they roll in a brand new Jeep. He would say, sure, sweetheart, what color? Whereas my mother, as conservator, would say, that's so sweet that you want to take her kids to school. That's wonderful, that's great. What color used minivan would you like? And thank you. That's where you may want to divide and conquer guardians and conservators. If we could flip to the next one, please. Okay, you made it through it. Everybody, deep breath. I got over killing y'all. We are over that lake accident. I got over it, we're done. We're now gonna talk about healthcare directives. What's a healthcare directive? Next slide. Ugh. People think they have a healthcare directive or a living will. My point is going to be, I don't care what you call it, I want you to have one. Healthcare power of attorney, living will, durable power of attorney for healthcare, advanced directive, medical power of attorney, healthcare declaration, these can be anything. A healthcare directive can be pages upon pages upon pages long if you're nearing end of life and want to make extremely clear medical decisions as far as what you do and don't want. It could be something as simple as a brochure that a 19-year-old fills out that says, hey, I know I'm going to college. If something happens to me, here's who to call. Call my mom, then call my aunt. When doing your healthcare directive, it could be complex, it could be simple. There are forms on the internet. I just encourage people to have one because especially when it comes to dire times, times of need, times of those last moments, it is much easier for a loved one to maybe let you pass away to heaven if you put it in your words that I want to pass away to heaven. They're not wondering what would mom have wanted because they have it in writing. Here's what mom wants. So something to think about. It may also include some burial wishes, but I know you'll talk about that next week, so I'm not going to spoil the surprise. The thing is, I think we're all old enough in this room, maybe online, to remember Terry Schiavo. If you haven't, Google it. She had a very, very serious medical condition, persistent vegetative state, suffered from cardiac arrest, and there was a years upon years upon years battle between whether or not to take her off support. A healthcare directive would have prevented that. A healthcare directive says, here's what I want. But if we can go on to the next one, it's a little bit more tricky. Because if you already have a healthcare directive, I'm going to say have a healthcare directive plus. Click, please. HIPAA authorization. A HIPAA authorization allows people to get access to your medical records. So here we go. I get a call, my older sister, as our healthcare directive agent. They say, we want to give her treatment A or treatment B. What do you suggest? What do you want? And I'm like, okay, well, tell me, is she on blood thinners? And they say, oh, sorry, we can't tell you HIPAA. What? You can't tell me if she's on blood thinners or not? Nope, sorry, HIPAA. A HIPAA authorization allows people to get access to your medical records to help them make those informed decisions for you. So I really encourage you to consider HIPAA authorizations as well. And just, by the way, so yeah, she is on blood thinners. Okay, treatment A, great. Next one, please. Power of attorney. If we could go next. There are different kinds of power of attorney. Again, be careful, careful, careful what you sign. A will is only good when you're dead. A power of attorney is good when you're alive. There is a Minnesota statutory short form power of attorney. Anybody can Google it. Anybody can get it on the internet. Anybody can get off a brochure. But guess what? Because it's so easy to access, people that may accept that may not accept that for fear of fraud or duress or undue influence. So then I say, let's look to the general durable power of attorney. Basically, it's between spouses, gives them the legal right to forge your signature that they've been doing for the past how many years. But, fun story with this. We closed on our house. They changed the date of closing on us 3 times. You're going to learn a little bit about my personality here because the final time we show up and we sit and we wait and we wait. And eventually they're like, okay, we're going to have to postpone this. We can't do this today. Where is he? He's not coming. Oh, wait, I've got the general durable power of attorney. Let's close today. I made them wait a little bit. What can I say? But I literally sold our house out from under him without him being there. That's how powerful this document is. So it's great for people to have. It's great for people to help you manage your life. But really, it's just saying, here's a red button. I know you've suffered from addiction. I know you have struggles. I know you have gambling debts. But you're my son, so I'm going to give you the red button. Don't push it. Be careful with it, is what I'm saying. Don't just sign. For older people, if your son, daughter, niece gives you a general durable power of attorney and says, here, sign this, you may want to think twice before signing it. Can you sue them? Yeah, will you ever get your money back? Probably not. And then, oh, haha, by the way, I threw this one in here. Healthcare is only good for healthcare, not finances. This is a, hey, let's look. Money, money, healthcare. You're only giving people the powers that you authorize and acknowledge and sign off to. Yeah, forms are important. Next one, please. All right, I put this one in here because there's been a lot of talk of it lately. There's been things on the news, there's been legal stories coming up, and I figure I could just help clear up some of the confusion about what a transfer on death deed is. We know that we are in Minnesota. We know that in Minnesota we have transplants from South Dakota. We've got transplants from Wisconsin, Nebraska, Iowa. You know, Minnesota has a lot of people from a lot of different states. And I will say that guess what? Not every state is different when it comes to laws, rules, and regulations. This is my intro to that, especially when it comes to land and title issues. Minnesota is a 1 to buy, 2 to sell state. Wisconsin is a 1 to buy, 1 to sell state. Basically, owning property is different, but Minnesota does allow for a transfer on death deed. People want to know, how do I get my house to my kid? I don't know if I need a trust, I don't know if I have a trust, I don't know if I want a trust, but I heard this thing on the news called the transfer on death deed. If the person's named on the title, die, and they still own the property, so guess what? I can move. No big deal if I move, I just don't own the property. It goes to the person's names. If everything is done super correctly and swift, death certificates if they're married, plus an affidavit equals transfer of title to the living relative. It's something that's being talked about when people have more and more and more parcels of property. How do I get it to the next generation? And I'm worried about potentially that stepped up on basis. I don't want to sell it. I don't want to pay 40% income tax on that. Something to talk to your attorney about when you see an attorney, just to ask a conversation. This is me helping you have a question. Because, yeah. Doesn't hurt to know. All right, next one. So, from the sermon today, when you die, you receive your great inheritance. But until then, we spend our lives working, earning, gathering, and caring for those we love. We spend our lives surrounded in a bubble of those we love. But my question to you is, what happens next? What about when you aren't here to do those things? Some people think, I don't need an estate plan. Well, guess what? True, I don't, I'm dead. I'm doing it for my loved ones. I'm doing it for my children, I'm doing it for my grandchildren, I'm doing it for my siblings. I'm helping them. Because in the end, my debt is paid, but I don't want them going through years and years of suffering, heartache, headache, and probate. So, that, I think, there's one more slide. I'm going to put my lawyer hat back on, folks. This is not legal advice. Nothing here is meant today is meant to be legal statements. This is not giving advice to you, those, or anyone else. No replay should be construed as legal advice. I don't know how many more times to say, this is not legal advice today. This is purely information. So what I want you today is to take this information and do with it as you wish. Talk to your loved ones. Talk to those around you. You know what? Take another cookie and leave. But I'm happy you sat here today. I thank you for allowing me to come in and present this information. And with that, I will conclude the presentation. Thank you. Oh, yeah.
If you have questions, I'm just going to use my head mic and put it in your face, and then you can talk to it, just so they can hear you online. But anyone have a question? Raise your hand. Anything that wasn't clear? Bob? Hold on.
I don't think you addressed life insurance.
Great point. I love that. Life insurance goes to the beneficiary on the life insurance policy. An estate plan, unless the beneficiary is the estate, life insurance goes to those named. And a lot of people do utilize life insurance as an estate planning technique and tool for financial gains. Absolutely. I also caution people on life insurance. I did have a conservatorship court case where mom died. Dad was in the picture, they were married, but mom died. And 2 little kids, ages 10 and 8, were named on the life insurance money. Well, remember what I said, under 18 can't get life insurance in Minnesota? So what happened is Dad actually had to be appointed conservator of his own children in order to gain access to those life insurance funds. So, great question. Okay, I will also say some people don't want to talk on camera. Totally get it, normal fear. You don't want to ask questions in front of everybody in the whole wide world. I'm not here to advertise today, I'm here to help. My kiddo in the front here does have some cards with my info on it. If you do have follow-up questions, I hope that's okay. But beyond that, I just encourage you to talk, learn, and thank you, Pastor.